Welcome to the final episode of our Blue Planet Recontact series, everyone. We get into some really fantastic discussion this episode that we're really excited to share with you. But first, some announcements.
This was like one of our better discussion episodes. I always love our discussion episodes, but this one was a treat.
Yeah, this one was fantastic.
First up, the Kickstarter for this fantastic game is still going strong. Mm-hmm. There's a little over 2 weeks left before it wraps up. And obviously, we're not around next week to remind you about it. So if you haven't checked it out yet, please go take a look. One of the really cool things about this campaign is that by pledging to get the books, you get the whole catalog of the previous versions of Blue Planet in a PDF form. So you can have that whole catalog. If you want to go listen to, series 5? Six? Something like that. You can get all the books from that. So as soon as the campaign ends, you'll get them. Mm-hmm. So it's a ton of pages of lore to look over, potentially obsolete technology that you don't need. But you can start planning your campaign and everything before you even get to the new book, because you will have some of that world building material and stuff to look through. So you can check our show notes, and we have a link to the Kickstarter in there, and you can go see what that's about if you enjoyed these episodes.
Absolutely. And finally, this is, again, the last episode we're releasing in April. So this is your last reminder from us in audio format.
That's your final notice.
That's your final notice. That April is still Podchaser's Reviews for Good campaign. So for every podcast or episode review left on their site, Podchaser is going to donate 25 cents to Meals on Wheels. And if a creator like us responds to your review this month, they will double it. Also, whether it's an episode review or a full podcast review, we are going to queue it up for reading in our episodes in the call to action section at the end of each episode to thank you personally for bringing some joy and encouragement to our lives. And they really do help us out. I know we're kind of silly today, and you'll hear about that in the Outtakes, I'm sure. But they really do bring a nice brightness to our day whenever we get these reviews and get a chance to read them. So
I love reading them because it's like this reminder that people actually listen to the show. Because that's the thing about podcasting, is that you don't see it happen, or, we can look at the numbers and we have Twitter followers and stuff, but you don't really interact that way. So it is always like, oh, people listen to our show and they don't hate it. That's so nice.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So if you leave a review on Podchaser, we'll read it. And we're actually putting them to the front of the queue for this month to help the campaign along a bit. So you'll hear a couple of them at the end of this episode.
That's all we have for our announcements right now. So enjoy this fantastic episode, and find us again after the show. Mm-hmm.
Welcome back to our discussion episode, everyone. Last time we created our characters for Blue Planet Recontact. This episode, we will be discussing the character creation process. We are very thrilled to welcome back Jeff Barber, designer of this game. Do you want to reintroduce yourself again for everyone at home, Jeff? And tell us a little bit about the character that you made in our last episode.
All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Jeff Barber. I am one of the creators of Blue Planet, the original version and the new edition that we're kickstarting soon.
Kickstarting now when this episode comes out.
In podcast time, it's right now. So check it out. I am a game designer by dedicated hobby and a school teacher by vocation. And I'm just really excited chance to be here and talk about character creation for our game, but character creation philosophy in general. And it's always a trip to hang out with Ryan and Amelia.
So what is your character that you made for this this little adventure?
Well, I am one of the Pacific investigation employees. Our little PI company on Poseidon. His name is Zeb Smith. And my shtick is that I always say that and tell whoever's listening that it's with an X and a Y. And let them figure out what that means. And I am apparently the only player character that is an employee strictly of our little company here. I am, if you're familiar with Leverage, I kind of decided to be the hitter, the intruder. So maybe a hybrid between those two characters. I'm the PI grunt, the gopher for the sort of legwork that needs to get done in real meat space. I am the survivor biomod, which means that I was genetically engineered before birth to just be durable. I am tiny and shy, and my goals revolve my profile revolves around the goal of acceptance. So I'm looking to find a family.
Ryan, why don't you tell us about your character?
All right. I created Saren Pacific, one of the Pacific siblings, a mastermind with aspirations of stardom would be my concept. And she is a transhuman, genetically engineered individual with 3 moms. And she just wants to become a famous singer, but is kind of tied to this company as well and wants the best for it also. She wants to add more joy to Poseidon, but as well as tell her own story. And she's pretty hopeful, optimistic, but also rebellious. Yeah. What about yourself, Amelia?
I made Maris Pacific, the other of the Pacific siblings. She is a research-obsessed private investigator. I think the only one of us that is like really here to do some private investigating. Her whole goal is to save this family business from any kind of like corporate overthrow, because corporate corruption is the worst. She is logical and careful. She is also, I picked the cognitive synergist type. So very like smart, but not coordinated or entirely like with it. Unless she continues to go to therapy and be okay, like so many of us.
Yeah.
Yeah, but she's just like obsessed with researching and auditing and all that kind of really just fun hobbies.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and dive into our D20 for your thoughts segment.
D20 for your thoughts?
In this segment, as always, we like to talk to our guests and get their thoughts on the character creation process and character creation in general. So first, Jeff, a question about you as a designer. Where do you feel like your best design ideas come from? And then how do they kind of present themselves to you?
This is going to sound like a joke, but I'm being dead serious, and I'm not making a lot out of one instance. It is something that is so common that I actually take advantage of it by doing this thing. When I'm working on a project, it's always in the back of my head kind of percolating. And I would say that the vast majority of my good ideas, because there's plenty of bad ones, come while I'm taking a shower.
Yes.
And at first I just thought it was coincidence, but it is uncannily productive to the point where when I'm stuck, I will sometimes take a shower. And I know that sounds like a joke, but I think it has to do with how the human brain works, that moments of inspiration come when you're not looking directly at the thing, but your mind is partially occupied by something routine, like lathering your hair right?
Yeah.
And the stimulus of the shower and the noise and and it just sort
That's
of.
the thing is like, I think it's relaxing. There's like white noise. It's sort of like this quiet personal time where there is no other outside anything.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's something to be said for that.
And it has been, I could point to dozens of moments where I've made breakthroughs in the design process. Now, of course, I don't stand in the shower for hours on end trying to figure out a game. There's a lot of stuff that happens in the dry spaces in between. But no joke, that is a major part of kind of grokking through ideas as I need to for design projects.
And now we know why you created a water-based RPG.
Right.
Well,
have you ever seen those like crayons that kids have though that you can like write on the inside of the bathtub?
What?
Like they're made for like, they're like made of soap or something.
Well, then
like,
maybe I could do all the design in the shower at this point.
So like there were times when because my siblings are much, much younger than I am. So like they used to be in the bathtub and occasionally I would be like taking a shower and have a really good idea for like a paper or something at school. And I would take this like bath crayon and write on the side of the tub so that I could remember by the time I got out. And I'm just saying you should maybe invest in some.
I'll have to look into that.
Just beautiful mind it up in the shower.
But more generalized, right? I mean, every gamer, I think it's a fair question to ask any gamer. Anybody who games, I think at some point has to think this would be, even if they don't ever take the step of writing the first word down, they still have in their mind a game that they would like to make, right? And the actual like ideas, I think I mentioned in a previous episode that I leaned into the idea that write what you know. And given my background in ecology and marine science, and my just passion for science fiction, it was kind of a no-brainer to at least get the impetus for Blue Planet underway, and then just lots of showers afterwards.
Yeah.
But you gotta get that like water world feel though. That's really just like be in the space.
So a more general question, what do you look for in a system as far as character creation? Like when you sit down and either read a game to get inspiration from it or to actually play a game, what pieces need to be there for great character creation to happen? I'll
oversimplify a little bit, but maybe 10 years ago, I would have said it didn't matter, that I didn't care about the mechanics at all. And that, because I'm always been kind of a setting guy. That's where my impetus really comes from. I like world building, and to make this something people want to mess with, I have to put some rules on it so that they'll buy it and use it. Okay, but about 10 years ago, I guess, maybe a little longer than that, I started thinking more about how settings informed the mechanics and vice versa, and that was not my own original thinking. It was just sort of the way the industry seemed to be going, right? And the more that you can connect your mechanics thematically to the setting and vice versa, and then of course the more your character creation then is informed by connections to the setting, the more I became the more value I saw in the mechanics. And now I'm a huge proponent of the more connections you can make between the two, the better. And so character creation really needs to evoke the setting. Or if not the setting, I say setting because I like setting, but there's so many games that are kind of setting independent and are really focused on a theme or a feeling, and the more you evoke that theme or that feeling with your character creation, I think the better that character creation is, or at least the better it serves the purpose.
That makes a lot of sense. I know a lot of Powered by the Apocalypse games are basically that's baked in. The Stop Hack and Roll podcast likes to call it genre bacon, because it's the genre is baked in.
Yep, that's good.
To
I like that term.
To the characters and the whole concept. And it's a fun little thing to say, well, how much genre bacon does this game have? How much genre is baked into the actual mechanics and character creation process and all that sort of stuff. And I always thought that was an interesting takeaway for what to look for in character creation as well. Because if you, in the process of creating the character, you know how to play the genre that you're going to be playing in the game, that's a real testament to the design of the game and how easy it'll be to get into character in this world.
100% hard agree. That's exactly where, at least where my aesthetic is these days.
Mm-hmm.
How do we think that character creation in this game stacks up with other games that we've played? And how does it stack up with the original?
It's night and day to the original. The first edition, this will be the third edition. First edition was a point by percentile based system written by someone who had just gotten out of grad school for ecological science. So it was a simulationist.
Yeah.
The intent was that you could play like a miniatures game using it as well as the role-playing game.
Right.
And I like to think the second edition was a lot different and a lot better. And this is a very thorough evolution of that system so that they're almost unrecognizable, though the genetic ties are still there.
Mm-hmm.
I like to think that the new system is just as evocative, but is much more character and player facing. And it's not about simulating the mechanics of pulling a weapon and using it on a target as it is about simulating what it feels like to be this person in this setting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I remember we covered second edition, and I remember the characters in that was a lot of the 90s-ish mentality of what can my character do, and how well can my character do that. And that was very much there, but like a lot of the themes I think that the second edition had feels like it's here too in spirit, which is interesting. But yeah, it's totally overhauled to be a person instead of like what can this person do. It's focused on the individual.
Yeah, I think a good way to give us a similar phrasing would be the second edition was what could the person do, and then this edition is who is this person. Yeah, that includes what they can do, but there's more to it than that. How did they get to the ability to do these things? Where did those abilities to do these things come from? What is the consequences of doing these things? Yeah.
I feel like we talked about that last time when we recorded about that difference between like what can you do and who are you? And I don't remember if it was because you were like, this is the thing that I would change, or if it was that you had some of those. I feel like it was because you had some threads of that in your game, which weren't in a lot of games at that time. And so it was like you had started to get there. And I feel like this sort of rounds it out and is like, no, for real. This is about like who you are and how you fit into the world, as opposed to like,
hope so.
What are you doing? You know, but I distinctly remember that being a conversation that we had last time. And I wish I remembered exactly like how it went or what it was, but it was a discussion of like, this game is, you know, like we want it to be less about what you can do. Rich Howard was also there, so it was probably something he said too.
Yeah, that's very possible.
It sounds very Rich-like.
I like how normally people would say crunchy is a bad thing, but I do like how crunchy this feels, but it's not like super crunchy in practice, right? It's like the spirit of the crunch. Yes. Effectively.
Yeah, because you do get like you get like the option of like a lot of skills that you can do stuff with, but it's not like writing to like 3% here and 2% here. And
it's not
here,
overwhelming.
You know, like, yeah.
Well, I'm super gratified to hear you say that, because that was exactly the target we were aiming for a couple of reasons. Primarily for me, Blue Planet is a really deep setting with a strong focus in real science. And it didn't make sense to have a completely narrative style mechanic system laid over that. It didn't feel like a good match. Yeah. But I also didn't want to recreate a simulationist approach. And I didn't want to alienate the fans of Blue Planet who supported us with, you know, a system that didn't make people made characters that felt like they were ready for this challenging environment. But I wanted to do a lot of the things that more modern game design allows in terms of making the game character focused and not requiring a calculator at the table when you're making a character. In fact, I think in the last episode, as we made characters, that was a couple hours of effort, but there was a lot of discussion that went in between the actual choices we made, and the choices themselves are pretty simple and pretty straightforward. And now, having done it a bunch of times myself, I can make a pretty fleshed out character in about 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Right? There might be things I want to add or change.
Difficult process. Like, I think most of that time was because we were like, hey, what is this? Or like, you explaining how to do it and then just making the choices.
Yeah. Now that you guys have been through it, I imagine it would be similar for you. You could sit down and plow through this really because there's nothing, the numbers are simple. It's a few integers here and there, and everything else is player chosen descriptors that really you don't even need to consult the book for if you know what goes there. Right?
Yeah, it's interesting. Like the skill sets and the tags felt very much like coming up with aspects for Fate or something like that.
Yes, I was thinking that.
The tags in particular are very much, it's just a different version of that same implementation.
Yeah, exactly. And the open-ended nature, but like still kind of confined to like the general core and specialty was really interesting. Like finding a theme horizontally for those to fit the bucket that it goes into was really interesting as well.
Yeah, and that is the intention of making the characters represent not just what you can do, but who you are, how you got there, and why you're doing what you're doing. Really, I mean, you could boil it down to saying it is a game that has 4 attributes and 5 skills. But it's not, right? I mean, It's got 4 attributes, and each one can have a couple of focus attributes if you want, that really let you create nuance. And then your skill sets are way more complicated than 5 skills, but only in terms of what they represent, not necessarily in creating them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think that it gave me the feeling of like, oh, I can do lots of things without having to have this compendium of skills that I have to double check and make sure it applies to this situation, which felt like a really good balance. Because there are some games where, like even PBTA, where it's like you've got your 5 things or whatever, where it's like, okay, now I have to like make what I'm doing fit this thing all the time. And I felt like a little broader than that. Like I have more options. But I'm the kind of person that gets analysis paralysis. So when you hand me a book that's like, here's 100 skills, I'm like, that's too much. It's too hard. You've lost me.
Yeah, it might be fair to say that imagine a slightly more robust Forged in the Dark system that is got a Mad Lib component.
Oh, I love that.
So instead of having to like pick from the 2 or 3 words that the system provides, you get to put the word in that you actually want. And that's kind of the target we were aiming at.
I thought it was really fun too to have that like increasing specialty of like even just imagining of like the first level of like, okay, as a kid, I started with reading. And then when I got a little older, you can do comprehension. You understand what you're reading. It's no longer phonics, and then what is the next level of that? Well, now I can write my own thing. And that kind of, I think, helped me imagine some of my character's background too, of like, where did where is baby Maris starting? And then like, here's where I am now. I thought that was cool too. And the way that like the skills kind of reflected that growth too.
Yeah. I never would have got into a character with real-time strategy games as a skill set without that sort of like free form, but also contained factor there.
Right. I was like, what comes after logic, right? Like, what do you do with that? And it was like, well, take the LSAT, I guess. But it's like, okay, now I like to do puzzles.
I knew we were pretty close to done with the character creation section when I, as I mentioned previously, started this group of teenagers at my high school where I work in a game group who had never played role-playing games before, and I was wrangling 8 of them, and we made characters for everybody in about an hour and a half.
Oh, wow.
So they'd never played role-playing games before, and they made really interesting, interconnected characters that all had, well, most of them had backstories baked in. In 2 hours with a chaos of 8 kids whose attention spans, arguably are no better than mine. So it made me feel like, okay, I think we're where we want to be with character design.
Yeah, if we can do it in this situation, we can do it anywhere. That's really cool.
I really liked the comparing the ties to like PBTA bonds and whatnot. It's interesting because in PBTA, the bonds that you have are like, oh, we did something specific in the past, or we're related because of this one specific thing. And it feels very much in most cases like this is a backstory. This is how our characters are connected thing. But here it feels like we're connected in a certain way, and there's an active obligation that will reinforce our role play with one another, which is really great.
Yeah, this started actually from Delta Green. I don't know how familiar you guys are with the Delta Green system.
I haven't gotten to play it yet. I've heard amazing things, but
they have bonds, which are, you identify a person, an NPC, like a boss, a coworker, a spouse, and you have a relationship with them that is worth a certain number of points. And at least in my experience, players, and mechanically what you use that for is you can strain that relationship to like calm yourself down, to be less traumatized by the experiences you're having. But it affects that relationship. Most of my experience with Delta Green has been one-shots, so I haven't seen it play over the course of a campaign. But in the one-shots, people just abuse it as like a sanity battery. Right? And I wanted to see what it would look like over extended play. And so that was kind of my impetus behind the ties, was I want this to be an active thing that players have to consider as they go through a campaign. And that they have to manage these and nurture those as they go along through the story.
Can I ask then, what was the impetus for the tracks? Because I really liked writing them. Like, I had a lot of fun being like, what is this thing that we're looking to do? And then like writing the middle and upper level. Like, it was a fun creative exercise for me.
Yeah. So a lot of
without
games,
playing, it's hard to.
I love horror games. So I come from that background. That's how I got started in game design, actually, working on Call of Cthulhu stuff. But in games like that, there's the sanity track, which arguably is, an ableist kind of thing these days. But there's other games. I think Paranoia has some kind of track like that. I know that there's Don't Rest Your Head has a track where you're getting more and more disconnected from reality. And a lot of games these days that are focused on a specific kind of feeling have some sort of currency or some sort of progression that leads you towards a sort of a final state. I wanted that, but I needed something that could apply to all the different ways that someone could engage the Blue Planet setting. So instead of realizing that, all I could have would be instead of having just some kind of sanity mechanic or legality track where you're becoming more illegal or more of an outlaw, let's make some guidance around making your tracks specific to your campaign and to your characters, so that you can pursue those kinds of emotional states for your character, or those states of mind, or those sort of outside forces that are imposing on you, that are unique to the playing that you're going to do. And so that was the intent behind the current structure.
Yeah. I think we played with that a little bit during that session in 2019. I remember liking it in play.
Yeah, the track for that playtest, or for that con game, was the Red Sky Charters company that you were part of. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was a fly-by-night sort of seat of the pants family business, and everyone had a track where they we're completely dedicated at one end and ready to call it quits at the other. And there's a little mechanical hook in it that it can give you bonuses or penalties in some specific circumstances, so that you pay attention to it. But it's also a tool that the moderator uses to kind of audit the state of mind of the group. Like, hey, don't forget, this might be a cool moment in the game, but you still have this thing going on in the background here.
Yeah, I like that. So how does the process then of character creation reinforce the feel of Blue Planet Recontact and set expectations for play? I mean, I kind of got the fluidic nature of it, that you can have these conversations like figuring out what skills apply to what situations. I picked up on that right away from the character creation.
I think if I was being honest or trying to be most effective, I would suggest that you guys answer that question, because I'm kind of close to it and can't really see it from orbit anymore. I would say that I don't know that the actual mechanics, because the goal was to create characters that could be played in any kind of campaign in Blue Planet. I don't know that character creation itself is particularly thematic of Blue Planet. The aquatic themes, the environmental themes. I mean, sure, some of the genetic mods you can get are clearly for aquatic things, and there's a lot of like scientific recommendations for skill sets that are based in exploration and that kind of thing. But I do think that the mechanics could probably be used for any kind of modern day or near science fiction kind of setting. But I'd love to hear your guys' impression of the thematic tie-in or the reinforcement of the gaming intent behind it.
Yeah, because I know you've got the species, which really fits in with the themes of Blue Planet. That kind of gives you a big into the whole scenario and the sci-fi feel of it.
For sure,
yeah. But then you've also got the skill sets that give you those different buckets. Like your past is important, your occupation is important, your present is important, the future that you're working towards is important, that sort of stuff. I know that could be generalized, but it feels also important to Blue Planet as a setting as well. Because
as you say that, I think I realize why it might feel that way. Because to answer those questions, you're drawing from the setting.
Yeah.
So as you're making the character, you're forcing yourself to like answer in ways that would fit the person into the setting. So I guess that would be true if this was a game that took place on Mars. You would be answering those questions differently. But I think by default, then maybe, and I'm feeling pretty happy about that actually, in the realization that it draws its own thematic connections. So that's good. I'm glad.
I think for me, when I look at that, I look more at how did building a character tell me like what the experience of playing is going to be like, even more than like the setting of the game or the world or anything, but like what did it tell me about, like, am I going to enjoy this experience? Because when you have a game where you have like 100 skills, it tells me like this is going to be kind of crunchy. You're going to be doing math. You're going to be, and I'm like, that's not for me. What this told me is that like it's pretty simple. Like the number of things that I'm pulling from aren't going to be, like I don't need to combine 8 different things from 40 different books. But that there's a lot of room for me to kind of like move around in this world that we've created, and that I have a lot of like narrative control. Because over the course of this, I set out like, what are the kind of skills that I've had? I've said, these are things that exist in the world, like auditing. That's a thing here because I have made that skill. I've said that there are puzzles and riddles because I made that skill. Ryan has defined now there are real-time strategy games.
Yep.
So that tells me as a player that I'm going to have a lot of narrative control. It's told me that like work is very important. because we've set out that we work for this PI agency. I want to save the company. I like all of the things that we created are around the job that I'm doing. So like in our game, those are important. So I feel like it's the sense that I get is I will have a lot of narrative control. It's really open. And if I want to do something, there's probably a way that we can figure it out. And that like the things that are on my sheet are extremely important to the campaign that we're going to be playing. Because in so many spots, like we started writing this campaign and saying like, these things are going to be important because this is what we put on our sheets. And so I'm getting the sense that it's like very player driven, regardless of like the setting or anything like that, that like those are things that I'm going to experience.
I think that's a fair assessment, but I don't want to take too much credit for that because I think we kind of did a little pretty good session 0 as in between as we were making our characters.
Sure.
I do think if I had sent those kids home and to their dorm rooms and said, make a Blue Planet character using this checklist, and then they all came back, they wouldn't have had any of the sense that you were just describing.
Right.
Because everything
you'd
would
have
be a
8
big
different
jumble.
campaigns
Right,
is what
right.
you'd have.
I think I think your observation is particularly astute in terms of the front loading because of the way the characters are made. A lot of the player agency isn't necessarily mechanical as it is in some games, because there are a lot of games that depend on player agency to move the mechanics forward, especially in the narrative lines. Blue Planet is a little more traditional in that regard during play, but there is a lot of room in front loading the characters because of the way that the focus attributes are made and the skill sets are made, and then you build your ties and things. And then also in play, while you're interpreting what it means to have an accounting skill or to be, in my case, friendly, right? How does that get interpreted in play? And so I think there is room right there for some player agency that's maybe more uncommon in more traditional games.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know the biomods are a big part of character creation as well. That kind of, I like how it's near the end of the process because then it kind of gears you into the world a bit more. That it says, yeah, this is a game that has some interesting equipment and modification things that you can do after the fact if you want. That if you save up your money and you can get these cool other things. So it's another like interesting in setting goal that you can add into your campaign as like a side quest effectively. Right. And then getting a hold of the whatever supplements that you have that are like, here's 300 more biomods that you can throw in or whatever. Even if a game master or a group wants to create their own, just something cool that you can work towards, right? Which would be an interesting peek at like this world has fantastic technology, and it gives you an understanding that you're playing in the future, not playing in the present, set in the future. Right. Which is really cool.
Yeah. And you, when having to pick your species right from the start, you're still a human species, but you've already made a formative decision that's going to help inform all the other questions that you have about character design.
Yeah. Well, and even like what species we picked, like immediately you were like, okay, well, you're not from here then. And it was like, oh, good point. Like that already started setting up what the limits of this campaign might be. Yeah, I think that there's like a lot of what we did in character creation decided a lot of things about our campaign. Should we play this game? And so I think it made character creation important in a way that it sometimes isn't. Like sometimes it's like I fill out my character sheet and I show up and then the game happens and I'll slot myself in somewhere. And this is not that.
I'm glad to hear it because that was kind of the goal we were going for, but not wanting to make it overwhelming or require a deep immersion to be able to do it effectively.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like you hit that sweet spot, for me at least, of like not handing me a list of 8,000 options where I get overwhelmed, but not just saying, do what you want, where I also get overwhelmed because I'm like, anything? Like this felt like a good middle ground of like, I can make things happen, but you've told me what things. And that's, for me, like, perfect.
Well, going into the Kickstarter, that's very reassuring.
Good.
It's the chips and salsa on the Jello to sand.
Yes, the
continuum.
Jello to sand continuum of crunchy narrative.
I never heard that one.
This is my game design theory of like, awesome. Some things are too crunchy. Sometimes you're just chewing sand, and you don't want that. And then there's Jello that's just like real wiggly and not. Really, I guess it's kind of in a shape. You're like, this is roughly game shaped.
But that's the one form it holds until you cut into it, and then it's
right. Then it's right. And so you want to be in like the chips and salsa kind of like
I
crunchy, but it could be a little soggy if you left it in there. I love chips and
salsa. That's good.
There you go. See? So this is right in the chips and salsa sweet spot.
Nice.
I'm going to write a book on my game design theory.
At least an essay.
Right? The sand to Jello scale. One of the things that I get really excited about in games is character sheets. I filled out lots of them. I saved them all in a folder. Let's discuss the intention behind the design of the character sheet. I know it came up a couple times as we were going through that you're still kind of working things, and there was like one or two spots where you're like, we got to put that back on there. But can you talk about like what kind of story it tells before you even begin making characters? Like what influence the character sheet has on the design process, the other way around?
Love to, because it's something I kind of discovered in recent years as being an effective tool. I wanted to avoid having to write everything down and iterate from there, because iterating on writing, at least for me, is not very efficient because I'm a slow writer. I'm much more of a visual thinker and graphically thinking about the character sheet and the tools that were needed on the character sheet to do the game that I had in mind made it a lot easier to just iterate on a character sheet rather than iterate on a Word doc. So that was the starting point, right? So it really came down to sketching out some different character sheets with just a pencil on blank printer paper until I got to the point where I had something that was usable for the first playtest of the new system. And then I would use Illustrator to just make up something. If it tells you anything, I think the character sheets you guys have are version 4.5. And usually I have to do a pretty big fundamental change to change the version number. Yeah. And I don't have any schema. It's just in my own head, so I can compare them in my folder, right? But I think we're pretty close. And so on version 4.5, you can imagine there's been a lot of changes that have happened. But when I finally sat down to write the character creation that you guys are on, we're already on version 4 point something. So there hasn't been much change since the document that you guys worked off of today. And it was great to just be able to put the character sheet down in front of me and write the character creation section step by step from what I had learned from playing with the character sheet.
Oh, yeah.
And so that was sort of like my personal sort of design approach. The other sort of tenet that I wanted to make sure we were trying to include, and I'm sure there are places we can still do this, and I'd love to hear your suggestions. I wanted as much of the guidance for making the character to appear on the character sheet that we could fit in. That's my favorite thing. It may be a game design nerd thing, but that's my favorite part of Forged in the Dark, is that the character sheets themselves pretty much guide you through the process. Yeah. And I wanted that to not only be reflected on our character sheet in the character creation process, but also during play to provide some references as well. At least as many as we could cram in and still be a reasonable character sheet. So I hope that's kind of at least the ballpark into which we've landed. And we're going to continue to try to refine that a little bit.
I noticed, like now as we're talking about it, that there was only one point in the character creation process where I said, hey, where do I write this? And it was a thing that you said, oh, shoot, did we take that off? We have to put that back on.
Yeah.
So otherwise, though, because there are lots of times where we go through games and I'm like, okay, we just came up with this stat. I don't know what box this goes in because we've kind of called it this, but it might go over here. Like I had none of that. It was very clear to me, like this goes here, this goes here. And we went
awesome to hear.
like right in order down the line, like box by box. I don't think I really had to look too much at the mechanics list because it was like everything on the sheet was what was in the doc you sent us. So, obviously I would have to more if you weren't here to just like tell me things, but it was really easy to just like go section by section. These things are, this is what's next.
And that's really how it's presented in the write-up there's a list of, I think it's 10 steps. You just follow some number of steps. You follow each one and it leads you through the process, hopefully in a way that builds on the previous decisions you made. And anybody can do it, even if they aren't familiar with how the game plays.
Yeah, it's really interesting because when you go through the sheet itself, when you're just visually looking at the sheet, you can see that it's laid out in a way where you can easily grok where you're competent and potentially lacking in a mechanical sense, right? But also for the character creation process, it's you just go down the line from like left to right, up top to bottom, and you've got your character made. And then it continues on to the second sheet, and it's all just kind of right there, which is fantastic.
As somebody who is like also a visual person too, though, it's very clear to me from the size of things on this sheet that attributes and skill sets are the things that I'm going to use the most.
Yeah, and that's the intention.
Because they're bigger. And like that, I know it's such a simple thing, but it's like, oh, those are where I need to spend my time and my points, and like they're bigger.
Well, I think I was telling you before, the skill set box needs to be even bigger, in my opinion. Because you need to be able to write more than we were writing in there, as well as the tags, tracks, and ties. And we did try to make it so that really to play the game, you're looking at the first character sheet 90% of the time. And so, a 2 pages for a character sheet, that's over some people's limit. So you don't really need the second page. The second page is more sort of general reference in the background. And so we're trying to make sure we keep it that way.
Yeah, I like that. It adds detail to your character. And you've got the biomods and gear and weapons and all that on the second sheet. And I see this maneuvers, which tells me it's important.
Well, that box is the graphic designer kind of went a little far afield with that one. That box is considerably larger than it needs to be because it's just reference. You don't actively use that box unless you want to start creating your own maneuvers. But it's probably going to be about a third that size.
But it does tell me something about how the game's going to be played. For
sure.
A bit, which
we
is
wanted it on the
interesting.
character sheet. And if it's on the character sheet, it should be important, right?
Exactly. Yeah, and that tells me a bit about the intention behind keeping it on the character sheet, right? To say, hey, while I'm playing this game, maneuvers are going to come up. And they're going to be interesting because it's there and it's readily available, which is cool.
The intention behind them being there is, as I was saying, with the Forged in the Dark, a lot of play is guided by the character sheet. And much of what your character does when they are opposed by either other NPCs or natural forces or what have you boils down to these maneuvers. And being able to think in the general terms rather than getting lost in the minutia of what skill set specifically fits this circumstance, to be able to break it down into 3 options for each of these categories, which helps shape people's thinking and makes it a lot simpler for them to choose the skill set they want to use. And that's why the reference is being included like that.
Very cool. Well, What do you think then? This is one of my favorite questions, just because, especially when we have designers on the show. What do you think is one of the biggest flaws of character creation in the system? And what do you think is one of the best parts of character creation?
Flaws. I think that it's funny because even that sort of language anymore smacks of this system's better than that system, right? And I think a lot of people are getting to the point where like all systems should coexist together because people like different stuff. If I was just going to play Blue Planet by myself all the time, I think I would have more attributes. Because I sometimes struggle when I'm running the game to be able to answer people's question, well, is this cognition or psyche? I'm like, okay, whatever. Yeah, just whichever you prefer. And of course, the default then becomes, well, I'm just going to pick the one that got the best stat.
Right.
So for me personally, that's what I would maybe change if I was going to play it just for me and not try and have a broader, more accessible approach.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Conversely, or maybe it's perfect parallel, one of the things I like the best about it is the fact that we have these focus attributes that you can add in, and they are absolutely customizable to the player and therefore the character. And so you can really start to nuance those 4 attributes into something that really represents the exact character you want to play. And I think that was the whole point in that design process was like, I don't like just having 4 attributes, but there's no way to have, if you start breaking them out, it suddenly doesn't become 5 attributes. It becomes like 10 attributes. Right? Yeah. So when I struck on the idea of these focus attributes and being able to customize them, I became comfortable with presenting just 4 basic attributes and still being able to make the nuanced character that I wanted to make.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the focus attributes for the role-playing potential, the guidance potential for the players to play towards their character sheet, which honestly sounds like a fun topic for Character Evolution Cast whenever we get around to that, playing towards your character sheet. Yeah. Because like the whole idea of being able to look at your character sheet and know what your character would do is kind of the impetus of what role-playing games should be. Whereas like some games, I won't name names, but some games you create a character and they can do all sorts of fun, cool things, but then you have to shoehorn a background into it and a personality and why your character cares about anything in the world that's like separate from the system. And then now you're playing to something that's not on your character sheet.
It goes back to what we talked about earlier, what your character can do versus who your character is.
Exactly. Yeah. So like not like having the motivations, having the goal, having the attitude, having the specific attributes and the modifiers of those things, the defined attributes and all that sort of stuff. It really lends to, I know how this character would kind of respond based on all this cool stuff that's on my character sheet. And I like that it's all right there on the first page and available to you at any glance, right?
Well, let's discuss our character stories here. We'll get into our fan fiction section.
Fan fiction.
Let's just like our first adventure, let's say. Like what are we doing and how does it go?
Yeah, what are we up to?
I would love if it started in media res.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like is it a heist? Is it like, I don't know, like what are we, private investigators, what are we doing?
We're not we're
undercover at a jazz club.
Ooh.
Ryan's character is performing.
Oh, nice. So we must not be in our little rural office town. Or rural town where our office is. We must be in a bigger city to have a jazz club.
We went to the next biggest city, which has like 3,000 people.
Okay. So there's just a music venue and tonight is jazz night.
It's it's really a bar with like a tiny stage.
We call it the Jazz Club.
Right. Right. No, that's the name of the bar.
Okay, got it. That's good. Yep. Even better.
I mean, I assume there's probably like some kind of information that we have to get while we're there. But we definitely used it as an excuse.
So can the opening scene be me being punched and then falling backwards and then freeze frame and then it says 2 hours ago?
Right.
Right?
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah. And gosh, I can imagine that that my character would be just trying their best to maintain the attention of the audience so that both of you can, you know, easily do what you need to do to get the information from people that are, you know, otherwise distracted.
So is this an open mic night or are you actually booked in to be singing tonight?
I want to say we booked me in to sing for the specific purpose.
Okay.
Knowing that, and I want to say this is a genre outside of the genre that I'm interested in getting into.
Okay.
Oh, right.
To add that little bit of complication, right?
You don't have a deep catalog of songs that you've practiced.
Yeah, exactly. But
like the Blues Brothers playing in the country bar.
Yep. Kind of like that. Yeah. But yeah, so I got to keep the audience distracted while you two figure stuff out on that side of things. But what are we here to figure out?
I feel like we're trying to like, there's a conversation happening that we're just trying to like record or something because we're not thieves. We're not like, you know, like we are a PI, like a rural backwater PI association. So I feel like it's just, like, let's say it's like an eminent domain dispute or something.
Well, you wanted to break incorporate, right? Mm-hmm. And what if there was a local, the local miners the independent miners are trying to form a collective, essentially a union. Mm-hmm. And there was plans. We've somehow been hired by them to figure out who's trying to bust their union. Mm-hmm. And so there's a meeting here tonight between whoever we think is trying to bust the union and their union busters.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, their muscle.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So Zeb, I imagine that you're probably here in case things go south for whatever reason.
Yeah, maybe, can I be waiting tables?
Oh yeah, that sounds fun.
Why are you getting punched in the face?
Oh, I guess we'll figure that out. I had to have been discovered at some point, or maybe, you know what it was? We were about to get made. And so I started a fight with someone randomly because you know how it happens, right? I make something spill on somebody and then I say, "Oh, dude, what are you doing?" And then it just went from there.
It went from there. Did we get the information though?
We'd have to roll some dice to find that out.
Oh boy.
We don't roll dice on the show.
Yeah, I know. I would say probably not because that's the complicating open. Now the credits roll and the show starts. So now we have to come up with the second way to get the same information for the rest of the episode.
So like the show starts and it's us sitting in a diner and you with like a steak on your eye.
Yeah.
Like
piece of tissue paper up my nose.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then I can see like my tactical brain working, like how can we salvage this you know, blow against our group and tactically figure out a way to get the information that we need. Mm-hmm. And maybe now it turns into a heist. Mm-hmm. Like our reputation as a company is on the line to get this information.
Yeah.
And we really need, you know, this to come out into the open so that this minor group can unionize successfully and become a successful group of employees.
So I feel like we're going full leverage here, which is awesome. So I think the name of our campaign series would have to be something like Fulcrum or whatever to like take advantage of that.
Yeah. That sounds really fun.
Yeah.
And then we're kind of all we're all going against type a little bit, having to do this heist like thing. Like we're all not trained for stealing information and stuff from wherever, but we've got the computer know-how. You with your skills, Amelia, could easily find out the financial situations and where the money's funneling to in order to get the union busted, so to speak.
Yep.
But we just have to get in, and I see myself kind of more like the face character, trying to talk our way past situations in a way.
I do have interrogation and undercover work.
You are the performer.
Yeah, I'm the performer, and I've also got, like, especially if we are dealing with like younger individuals, trying to work our way through like the interns of the organization, so to speak.
Fellow youths.
Yeah, the fellow youths. How do you do, fellow youth?
That sounds even older.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that would be really interesting. We've got a lot of avenues to utilize our life experience to get this information.
I feel obliged to point out that if I would imagine someone picks up Blue Planet off the shelf and starts thumbing through it, they're not immediately going to go to like mom and pop PI campaign just screams, that's what I want to play.
Well, why not?
Well, but the point I'm trying to make is I'm super excited to play this campaign. I want it to be like one of our archetypes that I was talking about now. But that is a callback to what we talked about, right? Like the setting is so big, you can play any kind of game you want to, and the resources are there to set it up. And I think it's interesting that that's where we settled on the start of our little creation cast campaign.
Yeah.
Given the alternatives that are in the setting.
Yeah, the plethora of other options there are.
Yeah.
This is where we went.
It's interesting. We combined corporate espionage and rural survivalist to get to where we are here. And I think it's really cool that this game can support all of that.
Well, finally, let's get into our last segment here, our advancement discussion, and we will take it up a level.
Take it up a level. Take it up a level.
Oh, I see what you did there.
Yeah, I know. In this segment, we like to cover character growth and character advancement in the system. So the first question we want to ask is, how does a character level up in Blue Planet? And how do characters change mechanically when that happens? The answer as it exists in the moment is quite simple. But I'll preface it by saying a lot of the playtesting I've been doing has been one-shot-ish. So there really hasn't been a lot of playtesting of advancement, though we have advancement rules. So I will say that these may change between now and publication. But the intention is to, again, tie the characters to their environment and their actions to the mechanics in a way that motivates them to be their characters. So advancement is based entirely on your character profile. And that includes your character's goal, motivation for that goal, and the attitude. So in kind of rising order of importance, perhaps, attitude is your character's, the way they interact with the world is a simple way to describe it. Their motivation is why they want what they want, what's driving them to that. And then their goal is the thing that they're reaching for. And it's more than just to go out on Friday night, short-term type goals. It's long-term goals. Like, do you want a family? Do you want to move to the big city? Do you want to become powerful in the corporate world? Do you want to free Poseidon from its corporate oppressors? That kind of thing. And if you demonstrate your attitude, and I'm winging it, I don't have the rules up in front of me, so I'm going to wing this a little bit. So forgive me if I'm not exactly right. But if you play your attitude, so the idea is at the end of every session, you do a little inventory with the game master. You say, hey, look, I did this thing. I got punched. My character has this attitude problem, and I used it to get punched to cause this distraction. That then I get a little
checkbox. And on the character sheet, you'll notice there's chips, the character improvement points, the little circles. You just check one of those circles. Maybe you did it twice in a way that was significant in the game. It has to have like an impact on the narrative. It can't just be you grinding away on points by saying, look, I used my attitude because I swore.
Every time I was grumpy.
Yeah, right. Yeah. It has to have a narrative impact, and that there's some guidance in the rules about that. Same with motivation. But with motivation, it's a little harder to demonstrate that motivation to drive the narrative with your motivation. So maybe you're supposed to be doing this thing to support the company, but you really want to do this other thing. And so you kind of make problems for the company and the rest of the players because you pursued your motivation instead. You get two check marks for that.
Okay.
And usually it's once per session. Maybe if you really lean into it, you get twice per session. And then achieving your goal is, I think, it's not achieving the goal, but it's benchmarks towards your goal, give you like 5 checks. Right? You don't have to line out benchmarks. It's not like you have a timeline and a 10-year plan. This is my character's 5-year plan, and they write out their. But you tell the moderator like, "Hey, look, I spent all the money I made last session on this map so that I can find where my dad's boat went down." As in your goal of like finding your lost dad or whatever your goal happens to be. And if you do one of those, you get 5 checkpoints. And then you get to spend those like a currency on character advancement. I think it's 5, 15, and 25. You can spend 5 points to add a +1 to a skill set. I think you can spend 5 to get a 1, maybe it's 10, to get a 1 in a new skill set. So you can say, I've been playing the guitar a lot in my room over the pandemic, and I've learned to play the guitar. So I've got a 1 in guitar, and you can develop a new skill set using those points. You can raise a focus attribute by spending, I think, 15. And if you spend 20 or maybe it's 25, you can get a increase in your actual base attribute. The caveat to all of these is that you have to be setting that up during play. You can't just say, well, today I'm a point smarter, right? Maybe you have to be going to school. Maybe you have to be doing some research. Maybe you have to be taking some experimental drugs. Something in the story has to be lined up to make any of these happen. So if it's just a matter of learning to play the guitar, you just say through a couple of sessions, I'm going to spend some downtime playing the guitar. And then you get to add your new skill set. So it's not super robust or innovative, but it does lean heavily into this is the character I decided I want to play. And if I want that character to grow, that character needs to be that character.
Very cool. I love how it plays to those in order to level up.
And it's very, to call it leveling up is probably not fair to the expectation. It's such a minor change. It's very incremental. You're not going to feel like I know with a lot of games like D&D, you come into a new session after leveling up and you're like, oh my God. Yeah, right?
Yeah.
There is no moment of glowing light generally around around this.
I come from games though that have just like straight XP spends on like any skill is 3 XP or something like that. So it's like you're constantly going forward a little bit each session. Yep. So I always, every time people are like, it's a whole level, I'm like, a level of what? Like, it's not the kind of game that I play.
The part that hasn't really been play tested is that hopefully the numbers work out that every session, if you want, and if you were diligent and your moderator was diligent about tracking stuff, you can get a +1 in something, in a skill set, right? That's like the cheapest thing. So if you're really like pushing it, at least every other session, you could get a +1.
So you have the option of getting like at least a little better somewhere.
Or you could save it up and then get a big thing later. Because obviously increasing the game mechanic is attribute plus skill set roll equal to or under, right?
Yeah.
So if your attribute is bumped up by 1, suddenly all of the things you do with that attribute is +1. So obviously it should be more expensive. And they're harder to do. We know human will. If you're going to go to the gym and work out and try and get a better physique, it takes a lot of effort. So it should take a lot of points.
Absolutely. So what effect does this advancement have on the narrative? Like, does the mechanical benefit represent something in the story? Or is it a connection that we have to make ourselves?
Yeah, that's the requirement. If you want to have an advancement, you have to justify it to the table, and ideally you do that through some sort of role playing, or at least resource expenditure, right? Like I got a gym membership, or I have gone back to college, or something like that, right?
Oh, very cool. So you can't just be saying that, I'm going to increase this point here just because I think it would benefit me, even though I didn't use any of it for the entire campaign. Right.
That's the intention. And I like it because you can really hook players in. Like, I am playing a native character and I don't have any combat skills, or I want to raise my combat skills. Well, that's because I've been secretly training with the insurgency for the last 6 months and nobody knows it. Right. So that kind of thing can really tie back into the setting and developing the character as a person too.
Very cool. I like that. All right. Is there anything else that you want to tell us about Blue Planet before we head out, or anything you want to highlight on the Kickstarter now that we're in the last few days probably since this episode releases, or half of the campaign?
Sure. This whole process of creating this series has ranged much farther and more in depth than I would have anticipated. So I'm not sure that there's anything that we haven't at least touched on. I think maybe I'll say who I think this game would appeal to. If you like science fiction, check. If you like hard science fiction, the idea that it's based in as much as possible and still be science fiction, science, I would say check. If you are an environmentalist or have sympathies with the environmental plight of our world, check. If you want to make characters that are evocative of the game you're trying to play, I think we landed there. So that would be a check mark. If you want to have a lot of nuanced control over who your character is, I think there's a lot of that in there. If you want a simple system that still evokes and supports a hard science fiction setting, I hope that's where we've landed. I'm counting on the Kickstarter being generous enough that we can make them beautiful books. But even if they're not, if we can't make the physical copies as beautiful as we want them to be, or if you're the kind of person that has gone all PDF at this point, we are going to be providing those in as user-friendly format as possible. And we're actually going to lean in a little bit to hardship pricing on some of those as well, which we hope increases accessibility a little bit.
Yeah.
One thing that I will admit, this is entirely salesmanship, but if you don't want to wait and you're just getting into Blue Planet and don't already have some of the previous editions, on the day the campaign closes, depending on your pledge level, you're going to get a big download of the currently existing PDFs. So you can dive right in if you want to start reading. There's, it'll certainly be a lot of changes and additional material, but it will still give you a good solid grounding in the world of Blue Planet for sure.
Very cool.
I'm so excited to see what this looks like. And this has really this has made me even more excited about it.
I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah. It's good. It's good.
Absolutely.
I love the changes that you guys have made.
Well, Jeff, thank you so much for joining us to talk about Blue Planet Recontact.
Well, the thanks is all mine to you. You guys are great, and this is a great chance for us to talk about a game that we're really excited about.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you remind everyone where they can find you online and the things that you're working on?
Yeah, for sort of timeliness on a daily basis, Twitter at Biohazard Jeff, and then our website, www.biohazardgames.us. And then, of course, the Kickstarter page. You can find out how that's going just by going there. And there's ways to reach us through that page as well.
We'll have links to all of those things in our show notes as well. Well, thank you for sitting down with us. And thank you to everyone for tuning in.
That was a joy. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Call to action.
Yeah, like that. Okay, well, we are here back at the end of the episode.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, did you ever read that book, The Monster at the End of This Book with Grover?
No.
It's like one of my favorite children's books.
No.
Okay, but anyway, he's like, we're here at the end of the book.
Oh.
So that's what, that just made me, random thought, made me think of that. Jeff was such a fantastic guest to have on again. I really enjoyed the discussion that we had this episode. I mean, he's always delightful to talk to, but like I loved that we got to break down some of the game design and like really work through why he was doing some of the things he was doing.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, there was a lot of really good stuff there. I just realized I didn't finish this portion of the, the call to action, but that's okay. But yeah, we do have a few things before we let you go for the episode. First, if you've liked what you've heard on today's episode series, you can actually go ahead and check out the Blue Planet Kickstarter. The link is in the show notes. As of this recording, another stretch goal is just about to be taken care of. They are, just under $300 away from the next Kickstarter goal. So we might even hit that by the time this episode releases, with only 3 more goals to go before the end of their stretch goals list.
That's awesome. Because didn't they already have to put out more? They hit the other ones like day one, didn't they?
Yeah, this is the second stretch goal list. And they're almost done with that too. I don't know if there's going to be more after that, but I'm really excited to find out.
Yeah, I'm so excited for Jeff that it's going so well. Like,
yeah,
it's always good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Don't forget that April is Podchaser's Reviews for Good campaign. You can leave a review on your favorite podcasts. They'll donate 25 cents to Meals on Wheels. And if creators respond to it, they will change it to 50 cents. This works for both shows as a whole and for specific episodes. So if you have one that you specifically love or, I guess not love too, but really just only say nice things. But you can leave specific episode reviews. We will, as always, read reviews on our shows, and we will read those episode ones too. So you can let us know what's your favorite. Like this one from Michael of Healy on Podchaser. A good look at the process of creating characters in a wide variety of game systems.
Well, thank you.
Chef kiss, sweet and to the point.
Yeah, right to the point. And thank you so much for listening, Michael. But we also have a bonus one. Since this is the last episode going out in April, and since this campaign is in full force, we'll go ahead and read another one we got on Podchaser recently.
Whoa. That's like... Can you do that? Ryan.
It's our show.
There are rules.
I'm breaking the rules. It's
okay,
April.
Ryan has gone crazy with power. He's going to read 2 reviews.
2 reviews.
You are mad with power.
I am mad with power. And I'm going to read this review from Brick Steelhead from Podchaser. And I love this. It's in very advertising format, which is fantastic. So,
yeah, please read it in like an old-timey radio voice, maybe.
Are you suffering from alcoholism? Do you have stacks of unplayable character sheets higher than their dog is tall? Are you that player who brings a backup PC to the non-lethal game just in case? If so, then Chumley, this pod's for you. C-Squared takes me way back home to the first fun I ever had in TTRPGs, cooking up the peoples. Its hosts are the rattiest, its jokes are the daddiest, its goals are the loftiest, its tone is the softiest, its games the artiest, its guests the smartiest. Listen for the episodes that are essentially Kickstarter Spotlight Let's Play Session 0, and for those that are, but like, what even is personhood, you know? Squints and raises eyebrows, Elon Muskly. All of them are great. how to get 6 stars out of 5, spotlight some of them old-timey games, what have wild and woolly character generation methods, your Gamma World 7th edition, your Warhammer Fantasy Roleplays 3rd edition, your Into the Odds, your Atomic Highways, your Dark Heresies, et alia.
Wow, I can't believe you held on through that whole thing. That was a long review.
That was a long review, and it was fantastic.
But also, I appreciate all of the thought that went into that. Like, that was intense.
That was so good. Well, thank you so much, Brick Steelhead. That was fantastic.
Yeah, and we definitely are looking at some old-timey games. That was a discussion that we just had the other day that we always try to kind of like mix and match like crunch and, you know, your potato chips and your Jell-O.
Yep.
But, you know, we want to start mixing and matching some like new Kickstarter spotlight kind of stuff and some of the old-timey classics.
Yeah. I think after probably Series 40, we'll be able to start diving into some more variety of games as well. Since I think we're starting to plan a bit more ahead of the times, I guess we could say.
We say that for now. I feel like we always do really well for a little while, and then like
then stuff happens. Life is life. It happens.
It do be like that.
It do be like that. But we'll see what we can do. So stay tuned, Brick Steelhead et alia. We'll see what we can do for old timey games.
Yeah, prepare to give us that 6th star. Be ready.
Be ready. Well, give another 5 stars maybe, but don't just leave 1 extra star somewhere else.
Oh yeah, to be clear, don't like tag like 1 star.
I would have given this 6 stars, but
what I did instead was do a 5 and a 1, which cancels out to be like 2
like
and a half.
3, 2.5.
It's like that's not. Just watch your star math, everyone.
It's fine.
That's all we have for this episode, which honestly I think was more than enough. Next week, we will take our week off, and then we will be getting into a series that we've been wanting to cover since the beginning. So stay tuned for May. It's going to be very exciting. Until then, take care, stay safe, drink water, and keep making those amazing people. We will see you next time.
Character Creation Cast is a production of the One Shot Podcast Network and can be found online at www.charactercreationcast.com. Head to the website to get more information on our hosts, this show, and even our press kit. Character Creation Cast can also be found on Twitter at CreationCast or on our Discord server at discord.charactercreationcast.com. I'm one of your hosts, Ryan Bolter, and I can be found on Twitter at Lord Neptune or online at lordneptune.com. Our other host, Amelia Antrim, can be found on Twitter at Ginger Reckoning. Music for this episode is used with a Creative Commons license or with permission from the podcast they originated from. Further information can be found within the show notes. Our main theme music is Hero Remix by Steve Combs and is used with a Creative Commons license. This podcast is owned by us under Creative Commons. This episode was edited by Ryan Bolter. Further information for the game systems used and today's guests can be found in the show notes. If you'd like to leave us a rating or review, we have links to various review platforms out there, including Apple Podcasts, in our show notes. Also, check the show notes for links to our other projects. Thanks for joining us, and remember, we find that the best part of any role-playing game is character creation. So go out there and create some amazing people. We will see you next time.
Now we gotta read some show blurbs.
Show blurbs.
Show blurbs.
Show blurbs.
Show blurbs. Character Creation Cast is hosted by the One Shot Podcast Network. If you enjoyed our show, visit oneshotpodcast.com, where you'll find other great shows like Session Zero.
Session Zero is a discussion podcast that seeks to explore the psychology of role-playing. Each episode will feature RP concepts, stories, and tropes viewed through the lens of psychology by clinical psychologist Porter Green and industrial organizational psychologist Steve Discount. Join us on the couch for the next session.
I did it.
I did it too.
I'm clicking as well.
Wonderful.
And there's a little squiggle when I talked, so I guess that means
Oh,
it's
perfect.
working.
That means it's working. Huzzah.
Nailed it.
Yeah. Awesome. Oh, and you'll be so proud of me, Amelia. I got my printer working.
Oh,
I can actually print out stuff now, and I've got physical character sheets that I can actually write on. I am overjoyed.
I don't.
I know.
So you are
Well, I mean,
some
I
of the
don't-
only people to have ever used those character sheets yet, because they're kind of new.
Yeah. I really like them.
We've already
I
discovered
know
some
there's-
layout issues that we need to address, but yeah.
Yeah, of course. That happens a lot.
Isn't that always the case?
I know.
It's like the moment you share it or have anybody else look at it, you're like, oh no. Like when you send out your child's birthday invitations
Right.
and you didn't put the date anywhere in the
Well,
back.
there's the areas where you need to write the longer sentences are kind of some of the smaller boxes. So you may
Oh, there
find
you
them
go.
a little cramped in terms of today's
That's
use.
fine.
But
I'll see if I switch to keyboard or not in between filling other things out. I thought that was a cat at first. And you're on mute, Amelia. Or am I on mute?
Oh, no, I muted my other microphone too. I forgot so that it wouldn't record a bunch of noise.
Yeah. She's a tiny puppy.
She is. She's not going to get much bigger. Peggy.
Peggy.
Oh. Hang on.
Peggy.
What are you doing? Get out of my stuff. You can't be in here if you're going to be naughty.
We have minor puppy issues.
oh, I guess if you're going to have issues, puppy issues are some of the best ones to have.
Mm-hmm.
Because that means you have a puppy.
That's true. And Amelia's puppy, Peggy, is super adorable looking. Just a little fuzzball. There she is. Look at that thing. Aw,
Yeah, she's very small. You can.
so adorable. See, that's the size of a dog that I wouldn't mind having.
Yeah.
Especially if she doesn't get much bigger than that.
No, she'll be like, I don't know, like maybe 22 pounds or something like
Mhm.
that. She's a golden doodle, but she's like bred from a smaller line of dogs. And then she was the runt of the litter. So
Yeah, my wife's or my mom's husband had gotten a black lab recently, starting from puppy, and that thing is getting extremely large.
yeah, those things are huge. My parents have a sheepadoodle, and my dad was here yesterday, and I was like, this dog is so heavy because I was trying to hold her on the leash. But she and Peggy are best friends, so
There you go.
to play together.
But then I have to listen to my own voice, which I really don't like.
You just have somebody else do it, and then they can write it.
Yeah, I've surprisingly gotten over that. I guess maybe not surprisingly after 3 years of this podcast and, another year and a half of the other one. I'm pretty okay with it now.
Mm-hmm. Once you edit your own voice, it's for a while. You just are just accepting that that's the way it sounds.
I took deceptive and cool-headed for psyche. Did I say that? I'm not sure I said that.
I don't know, but Ryan will find out when he edits it.
That's very true. I'll leave both in too if it's there. Because why not?
I'm finally going to see the doctor tomorrow, but
Oh, yeah.
I sent her a message and was like, hey, do I see you for this? Should I go see a specialist? And she's like, well, we can talk about conservative treatment options, or here's the names of some specialists that I would recommend. And they were all surgeons. And I was like, that's not, okay. No, thank you.
Aggressive.
Yeah. Well, it's been a problem for 8 years.
Yeah.
And it's just getting worse. So
yeah.
Probably.
I always recommend the physical therapy route first. I see a physical therapist for my ailments, and the thing that's helped the most with those sort of things has been the ultrasound therapy.
They do that for like my shoulder, because I've been going to physical therapy on and off for my back for years. The hard part for me is that like one of the first things that they want you to do for carpal tunnel is anti-inflammatories. Mm-hmm. And I can't take those.
Oh, boy. So
I'm like out of luck.
Yeah.
So we have to jump right to like steroids or a cortisone injection or something like that, because I can't. The only option to take anti-inflammatories is to go off of my lithium, which is a big no.
No, that's a hard path.
We're not really. I went to the doctor for something last weekend when I wasn't feeling well. And she was like, yeah, it says that this interacts with your Lexapro. So if you could just not take that for a couple of days. I was like, that's an antidepressant. So no, I'm not going to do that. Like, don't just tell me to go off my meds for a couple of days. Mm-hmm. Seems very irresponsible.
Yeah, no, that makes sense though.
I think they look at my med list and are just like, why don't you just go home? I don't want to deal with that. I did manage to fit them all in my little water bottle thing, though.
Nice.
I know. Makes a cool noise.
Great for recordings.
Mm-hmm. But then I always have water when I have my pills.
That's true.
If I were running this campaign... Oh, sorry, that was my cat. I just realized that this Zoom call wasn't work-related, and that if I wanted to drink a beer while we were doing it, I could probably get away with it.
Do whatever you want.
I have the power.
Look at that. It's your weekend. I'm trying to start looking at names because I know that that's going to come up, and I'm so bad at it. I don't know. I got an email today that like referred to me as Mrs., and I was like, no.
Ooh.
I like when I get ones at work that say Dr. Krause. And I'm like, you are wrong on both of those, but thank you. Good try.
Good try. Good effort. All right. Now we can stop. Now that Peggy is barking in the background. It's fine. I know.
Yay!
Huzzah!
I did a click.
Oh, that was really loud. My gain should be fine enough. I should be okay.
I just hate that when you like do it and you're like, something isn't right, but also I haven't touched anything and it was fine last time and I don't understand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of the things my H8 recorder that I have everything hooked up into, when I unplug it and transport it wherever and plug it back in, it has a built-in noise gate on there that I set the threshold to negative 50 dBs. So anything below that, it just cuts off.
Nice.
But when I plug it back in, it resets to negative 80. So then it's just picking everything up.
Yeah.
And I have to keep remembering, oh yeah, I plugged it in. Let me change that back. Otherwise, the next time I record it, it's got all the
little sticky note on your arm, on your microphone arm or something.
Yeah, all the horrible background noise of my studio, which is negligibly there in the first place. But
yeah, not like me with all kinds of noise happening.
Yeah, it's fine.
I really got to find a better way to.
Yeah, I think the only thing that
you're on like your third microphone, and I'm still using the original one from 3 years ago or whatever.
It still works.
It does. It does. I need to get an arm for it, I think.
Yeah.
Need to finally break down and do that. I have different headphones than I used back then. So
that's true. Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
The new headphones from James and this microphone.
Yeah. I was going to say I bought new ones, but I didn't. This was Shadow of the Cabal money, actually.
Oh, yeah.
I bought these ones because mine kept like being weird, and then like occasionally gave feedback, and Tanner was like, I can't stand you. He like mailed me new headphones. Like, I'm sorry.
I wonder if we could talk to James about getting one of these mics for you.
Yeah.
The ATR or ATR, whatever it's called. Yeah,
maybe. Because I feel like I'm outgrowing this one, you know?
Yeah. Well, plus the whole room that you're in and all that sort of stuff. That one will pick up less of the reverb and everything.
Yeah, and it's an echoey room.
Yeah, and if you get like an arm like I've got here, you can just keep it off to the side on your desk and then just swing it over, because I can literally just move it back.
Yeah, I want to do that. I want to get one that like attaches to the desk, because I can't like screw anything into my walls. But yeah, I need to do something, because I just also don't have a lot of desk space.
Yeah, do what you can.
Yeah. Anyway.
Oh, I didn't color code anything. Son of a gun.
My God. I knew something looked wrong.
And also, you said you might have had one, but you forgot it. Did you remember it?
No, I couldn't.
Okay. That's fine. I'll just delete that finally.
You can put it in the outtakes for next time. Dear listeners, I had a cold open thing and it was going to be great. So I'll let you just imagine it. Yeah, I have no clue like what it was even about, much less like, yeah.
Yeah. No, that's fine.
It's long gone.
So wait, okay.
It might not have even been a cold open thing.
It might not have been.
Who knows?
We'll never know now.
It could have been anything.
It could have been anything. Okay, so we'll have you start.
Okay.
And then we'll have me go there. Oh, wait. Yeah, this whole thing should be me. And then you for the Podchaser stuff. And then I'll just finish that up. And then who's reading the review this time?
How about me? Because I wanna.
Oh, that's great. Then I'll just color that there, and we'll see where it lands up here.
I had to explain Podchaser to Jude the other day.
Oh.
And he was like, what is Podchaser? And like, why is Aaron all mad that somebody left a review on like our show about like, it was like some kind of like reply guy review on like every single episode that they've put out of this like Babylon 5 podcast that he's doing.
Oh.
And I was like, okay, so Podchaser is this thing. And he's like, so it's like a different iTunes. I was like, no, I would describe it as like Yelp if iTunes was McDonald's. Like it is like, it's not like putting out the podcast. It's just like, finding and talking about podcasts. It feels like the IMDb of podcasts. There you go. That's probably a better way to put it. I was like trying to find like a way to explain it, because I was like, it's not like aggregating them. It's not like like I'm like, you're leaving reviews and you can find stuff as a creator. You can say, hey, this is a podcast that I made. I also guested on this one episode over here. Like, you know, so yeah, you're like an IMDb is probably a better thing. And I described it as Yelp if Apple was McDonald's. And he's like, okay, so not a big deal. And I was like, no, probably not.
Yeah. It's pretty nice because it verifies everything that you put in there too. So if it's like,
I know I've said that I was a guest on like some podcast somewhere, and like, I don't remember which one it was, but whoever runs the podcast still has not verified it. And it bothers me because it was like 2 years ago and now it won't show up on my thing.
That's annoying.
That's right.
Come on, verify
now
it.
No one will ever know.
Hey, if that person's listening to this, because this is definitely going in the outtakes, verify Amelia. Come on.
Okay. Let's see. I'm starting, so I will yawn one more time and then.
All right. I'll just do the recap.
Very sleepy.
I can be on again.
Oh, even though I slept till noon.
I went to bed at 2, so and then I woke up at 9.
I think I fell asleep by 11, but the 2 nights before that, I only got like an hour each night, so I was exhausted.
Your body's just like, give me sleep.
Right. Please. Well, and then of course I haven't taken my ADHD meds today, so it was like, how about we do nothing but sleep and eat?
I mean, that's fair.
And I was like, yeah, but I got stuff to do, like make cake from a box. Anyway, okay.
All right. Call to action time.
Action. And we gotta have. It bothers me that there's no like.
There's no like.
We could just like. We need to get one of those like movie snap things and action, which I can't like properly clap because I have a brace on my hand right now.
Call to action.
Yeah, like that. Just do that. You saying call to and me being like, yeah, like that. That's the sound clip. That's it right there.
I'll see what I can do.
Thanks. You're a gem.
Maybe some explosions behind there. Who knows? Okay. I'm going to record the recap while we're here. You don't need to be recording for this part. That's good. You're too late. I'm doing it anyway.
Did it.
I also have waveforms.
All right. I am pulling my character sheet back up so that I can remember what I did.
Oh, I'm pulling my character sheet back up too. Oh, it's on a clipboard.
Oh, mine actually looks really nice, though.
Like, high fidelity that way.
Like, it looks beautiful. You can just kind of see.
Oh, that's gorgeous.
Yeah. We can
that
see
was a good investment.
It's in the completed characters folder. Yeah, I bought it almost entirely because of the NES stuff. We get so many electronic submissions, and I wanted to be able to like take notes and like not try and like sit at my computer and scroll and you know.
Mm-hmm.
Can I know this isn't a game design essentially a game design podcast, but it's about very specific parts of game design. I'd love to make a plug for aspiring game designers to use their character sheets effectively. I have found, both working on Upwind and Blue Planet, that that's a great place to start. I think it could be a mistake to start writing out your rules, your mechanics, your character creation, because if you're like me, writing is hard work. But if you know what you want to do for your character creation, even if you are not a great graphic designer, you can create a character sheet even with a pencil and blank paper. It really helps shape your thinking, and you can start your tweaking and your iterating and your playtesting just using the character sheet, and you get a long way towards a final version of your character creation and rules using the character sheet as the guide. Much more easily than writing and rewriting, at least for my money.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's something I think we talked about. We touched on briefly when we did our Star-Crossed episodes with Alex Roberts, talking about like the intentionality of the things that are on the character sheet and like what it tells you about the game. I would love to sit down with like a bunch of game designers and kind of do a panel about like what your character sheets say about your game and like how the design of that, you know, like goes along with what the game's supposed to do. And like, I'm fascinated by the concept of character sheets. Like, I don't know. I mean, I think they're easy enough to make in Google Sheets too, to even start like sizing things and see like how much room does this take up and how important is it to the game. And, you know, I don't know. I think that's an interesting, I didn't think ever about like kind of starting there, but yeah, how they look and like what they tell you is important is fascinating to me.
Yeah, no, that makes sense to me because I started my character stuff with Chimera as character sheets and designing the sheets. So that's interesting. Yeah,
it might not be a revelation in general. People may, oh yeah, that makes sense. And I do that all the time. But for me, it was like an important realization in my design process.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, we can fit that in. I know on a previous series we asked about character sheets on there. Do you remember what one that was?
No.
Okay, let me find it real quick.
I'm trying to like think of our list of episodes.
It was a very good question, and let's see here. Let's see. Yep, here it is. No, that's not it. That's close, but that's not it. So it's got to be right before then.
Yeah, it was a recent one, right?
It was fairly recent, yeah.
So was it maybe Quest?
No, it wasn't Quest. Unbound maybe. I don't think it was Unbound.
Listened to that one, but I don't recall that specifically.
Yeah.
And anyone can wear the mask doesn't have character sheets.
Right. Burn Bright. I think we talked about that with about it being an online format, so that doesn't exactly apply.
My brother was so funny because he's playing that one too, and he was like, he had some question, and I was like, well, I don't know, I'll ask some of the designers, and he's like, yeah, okay, whatever. And so like I tweeted about it, and like James Intercasso got back to me, and Mark was like, oh, I didn't realize like you were that tight with people. And I was like, what do you think that I do? Like, what do you... I was like, buddy, I went on a date with one of the designers of the game that you're about to play. So like, yes, I know them. Like, she helped Nate with his science project.
It's fine. All right, I think I can take this question and modify it just slightly. Okay.
Yeah, I know there was one, but I couldn't tell you where it was or what it was.
Mm-hmm. It's about the intention behind the sheet's design, that sort of stuff. And what are we on? What?
38.
38, there we go. Hello.
Yeah, I remember writing it, but I don't remember when.
Yeah. Put it right there. We'll move this.
Does win even matter anymore? Last year.
Exactly, right?
No. I like to pretend it doesn't because my son is turning 10 and that makes me feel old. I've been a parent for a decade.
It's wild that my son is half your son's age right now. And I'm like, what?
It's too long.
Uh-huh.
I've kept a human being alive for 10 years.
It's an achievement.
I have a plant that I've kept alive for like 5 years, though, so pretty proud of it. I feel like that might be the bigger achievement. Kids at least tell you when they're hungry.
True. But have you instilled a value system in your plant?
No, I don't think so. I don't know. I haven't really asked it.
Sorry, Ryan. I didn't mean to throw a curveball.
No, I'm perfectly fine with that. I love the question. So I think adding it right after the process of character creation works really well. Can you talk about your process with redesigning these character sheets and how that helped guide the character creation process? I think that would be good. Yeah, I think that works.
Works for me.
Yep.
Except for the fact that we can't ask our question of how did you get into role-playing games?
I know. I've got other questions for that, so it's fine. All right, ready to get started?
We're ready.
All right, I'm going to give us a 5 count of silence so we can get that background noise, and we'll get started. And you're muted, Amelia.
Well, it's because my neighbors were stomping upstairs.
Oh, there you go.
I was like trying to like, okay.
All right, now we can stop.
I just decided that should be a t-shirt we make.
Ooh, 3, 2, 1, clicky.
Yeah, like I don't, like most people don't hear it, right? No. But like we put it in our outtakes like a bunch.
Oh yeah.
And when we did that like cold cuts special.
We always talk about the I always put in the outtakes the E of my clicky. And
like whenever guests comment on it too.
Yeah.
We usually like leave that in there too.
Yeah. So it's alluded to. It's the illusion of the clicky. Right.
But we should like find a fancy font or somebody to do formatting or something and do 3, 2, 1 clicky.
There you go. Hey, outtakes. Here you go. This is just for you. 3, 2, 1 clicky.
There you go. Now we can make a t-shirt of it because we put it in the show. It's a real thing.
It's a real thing. It's happening. It's happening. It's happening.
Oh my God. The time has come.
It's Saturday, people. Welcome.
It's 3:20 on a Saturday. Mm-hmm. And we're both acting like we're drunk already and neither of us drinks. So
hey, I've got a vaccine coursing through me, second dose, so I have an excuse at least.
I don't know. I ate a sandwich.
Hey.
And I didn't let my dog eat antidepressants. So
I'd say that's a pretty good day.
How's your day?
Oh, Lord.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we've got this one. We've also got this one here by Brick Steelhead.
Dang.
That's a good name.
That's definitely a professional wrestler, right?
Probably.
Or yet another nemesis of Dirt Stranglethorn.
Or unlikely companion.
Future BFF.
Brick Steelhead and Dirt Stranglethorn taking on the world.
Oh, yeah, that's like the sequel movie.
There you go.
It's like he shows up in the first movie, and then like when they have an offshoot and all the other actors are like, we're too busy for this, it becomes, you know, Dirge and Brick.
Yeah, Dirge and Brick. There you go. That's the name of the show.
Yeah.
Dirge and Brick. Oh, Lord.
I did.
So I'll let you read Michael of Healy's.
Okay.
And then I'll read Brick Steelhead.
I almost said Steelthorn.
Brick Steelthorn. Oh.
It's hyphenated because Dirge's mom remarried later on.
Again. Strangle-Thorn.
Did you see my tweet about Nate's terrible podcast? About, he's like, oh, The Deathly Hallows is like a really boring movie, the second one. And he's like, it's just like, or the first one he was talking about. He's like, it's just like camping and Voldemort. And I was like, camping with Voldemort. And he goes, that's a terrible podcast idea. Touche.
Uh-huh.
I didn't ask, but you're not wrong.
Uh-huh.
So anybody who had that on their podcasting bingo card, camping with Voldemort,
I don't know.
Nate will not be a listener.
Could be
You really
good.
got to work on your 10-year-old demographic.
Yeah. Today we're going to be learning about cooking over the fire.
But it's the only thing that he knows how to cook is like potions to make you immortal. Like
I burned another hot dog,
Harry.
Harry.
He has no nose, so if he gets sprayed by a skunk, he'll never know. That's a real bummer for everybody else around him, though.
Uh-huh.
So at least one episode is probably about that.
Uh-huh.
How to tell Voldemort he smells like a skunk.
Oh, Voldemort. You're bad at camping.
That's another t-shirt. Camping with Voldemort. Oh, gosh. We're hilarious.
We should do these more often on Saturdays.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah, it's why I don't know why we're like this right now. Like it's, you know, it's the middle of the afternoon on a Saturday. Like it's not late at night. It's not, you know, but look, neither of us has slept enough and camping is funny.
Camping is funny.
Okay. Cold open.
Cold open. I will start the countdown and we'll get to it.
Here come the fingers.
Here come the fingers. All right. I do have an intruder in here now.
I know, I was going to say, we'll pause while you see what that's all about.
Oh, okay. Hey, what's
Hi,
up?
Quinn.
What do you need? No, I can't hear what you're saying.
Past.
Past?
It's professional.
Yeah. Hey, you're talking too close to the mic. Here, let's back it up a little bit.
I mean, that's better than a podcast about Voldemort camping.
That's
So.
true. That's true. Here, we got to put this in front. And then you can talk right to this thing.
Hi.
Hi.
She says hi.
Hi.
Here, let me put these on your ears and you can talk to Amelia.
Hello.
Hello. Are you a real podcaster now?
No.
No?
No.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think when I grow up.
Yeah, what would your show be about?
I don't know.
Oh, well, you've got time to think about it.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Bye.
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 That was fun.
Okay.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. I'll see you in a little bit, okay?
It's almost done.
Yep, I'm almost done. I just got to finish up this part of the recording and then...